The case against 4 suspects arrested in connection with violent service delivery protests in Tumahole, Parys, in the Free State has been postponed. Dozens of residents earlier gathered outside the Parys Magistrates Court in the Free State, where the suspects appeared. They face charges of arson and public violence. Newzroom Afrika's Tumaole Mohlaoli is there standing by to speak to some of the residents. Perhaps just talk us through details as you saw and heard them in court. Tumaole, good afternoon.
Very good afternoon to you, Dudu. Well, as far as details in court, there was no access granted to the media. In fact, there was a heavy police presence outside the court precinct where I am right now here in Parys, and there was a large gathering of people as well protesting outside the court precinct here, making their voices heard and saying that basically those who have been arrested should be released unconditionally. However, of course, the court has now postponed the appearance of the 4 that appeared today. I am reliably informed by officials at the court that more suspects will be appearing. All in all, 12 suspects were arrested yesterday, and they are set to appear in court on Friday. So the numbers keep going up as investigations continue, hence why this court appearance was very brief and effectively held in camera. We will be approaching the court to be allowed in when the suspects appear again. That will be on Friday. But in terms of what is happening with the residents and in terms of what their grievances are, let us speak now to Mr. Temba Khwase. He's the chair of the Ngwate Independent Community Association. Mr. Khwase, thank you very much for speaking to us on Newzroom Afrika. You came out in your numbers today earlier as concerned residents. Why were you picketing outside court, and what are your demands?
We picketed because we want metsi. If Maspala ga re fa metsi, re na bothata ba ha re file metsi. Ntho e tsalang ka location e tla stop because re na rona re le mokgatlo ba ai. Ke rona batho ba pele ba approach majoro go pa buisana le na ha kala o dula setulo se sa bo mayor. Ha tswa ba tlile go kopana le rona o fitlela le ka jekule na ka maji. O fitlela Sunday community kopana yetsa ntho ena e etsang ka jekule. So majora ga re fa metsi fela bothata bo ka allocation bo tla stop. Ba ska ba bulela metsi ka di sections. Ha ba bulele metsi ba ne re phela mo metsi a tsamang teng. Val River ke ele mo. Ha e hole le rona, ha o finyana le rona. Wa re tlamile o sokola metsi mpa re phela mo metsi. Di ditsense tse re dulang ho tsona mo re dulang teng. Ho kolla metsi. Ho botho metsi ha. Re kopa dintwa tsa bona tsa di politics. Dis ka tsa re affect rona community. Because rona re were innocent. We don't know nothing ba tseka eng ka rona. Ba ska sebedisa rona hape go lwantsha ntho di politics tsa bona. Ha ba re fe service delivery because towards election ba itlisa service delivery. Now why ba sa itlisi ba lwana pele?
Ha o bua ka service delivery taba ena ya hore ha le kene le politiki empa selekene ka tsela e nngwe ya o hlaisa ditletlebo tsa lona ho roba molao. That's why batho ba tshwere ha le batla ba ntshuwe tjena ho tshisetsa motho lelapa kapa ntlo le bona hore ke ntho e lokileng hobane re na le melao mona Afrika Borwa. Jwale ha le bona hore e tla beya tletlebo tsa lona tse di lwanelang ka mosing.
Re ke be ke kale ka hore rona re le nika ha e sale re organize di march tse peaceful. Ha o so be le ntwa le councilor ka pa ya majority e kile ya tjha. Ha e sale o ntse tshwara rona re tshwara ngaka re ntse re etsa di peaceful march because the politicians le tsona tse instructor maponisa re a tile ka rona leadership ya nika fela because re lwantsha bobodu bo etsa land masipaleng ona ngwa. Today re bona so tla bo sanko ba ntse ba le ka nako e ka ofela ha ntho tse di etsa ntse re tshwara lwanela service delivery. Ha re dumela ntshore matlo a batho a tsheso e lona re le nika ho hanga re matanye lo batho ba organizing this thing ba ne ba sa tholahale ha e sa le rona nika re la ratana re tla to buela batho ba ba tswere. That is today o bona some leaders of nika ba ne ba lwantsha ntwana re le ba interview today ba nna kwa ne ba batho ba tswara bona ba organizing total shutdown ba sa thola ho tloa manta ntse le rona nika ntse re bua le police. Ha re dumele matlo a batho a tshiso, ha re dumele any violence hore ho be le moferefere mo ntho re etsa. So rona re le baetapele ba nika ra kopa ho mme Victoria ha ka iphena ka o buisana le rona a ska re rona re ba mokgatlo itseng rona re independent, we don't belong to any political party. Se re se batla fela re batla service le re batho ha bulele metsi ho be le khotso ka allocation re phela ka hara metsi mo Tumaole mona Vaal River ke le tletse metsi why ba tlamile hore ba kenye dijojo tseo benefita bo mammo dilori tseo benefita bo mammo ke tšhelete ya rona e go sane ba batla rona re patale di-services jwang ba etsa tšhelete ka rona.
No, thank you, Releboa. That was Mr. Themba Khwase, the chair of the Ngwate Independent Community Association, saying that the issue of violence, the association condemns unconditionally, saying that they don't want elements of violence to disrupt what is a legitimate struggle, they say, in terms of the shutdown. They say that their hand has been forced as residents in terms of this shutdown movement or shutdown action that's been happening, the violent service delivery protests. So they are calling for people to not to break the law when they protest. However, they say that the long-standing grievances seem to have forced their hand, and people feel they are not being heard by those in power, including, of course, the mayor whose property was torched. We will get an interview with the mayor to try and get her side of the story about how she feels about how these protests have been handled and the allegations that have been put through. What residents here are saying is that, of course, it's been raining quite heavily. They expect that with the Vaal River, which is not far from here, full, that the reservoirs and the various water treatment facilities, there are plenty of water treatment facilities not far from here as well. In Kroonstad, there's one major one, certainly a lot of fanfare when it was launched and set to be refurbished. This is something that both the provincial and national government, the Department of Water Affairs and Sanitation, was watching very closely. So they were expecting that these long-standing problems were going to be resolved. This is some of the views that have been highlighted, of course, by the Ngwate Independent Community Association. But as far as that court case is going, they have vowed residents to continue with their protest action. They say that they will also continue to support those who are behind bars, but also an issue in terms of divisions amongst residents, saying that they are not necessarily being represented by officials of SANCO. Earlier I spoke to a SANCO official, member of the SANCO executive here in the Free State, who highlighted some of these issues, and I posed the question, where has SANCO been this whole time? Because SANCO, as an organization, the South African National Council of Civic Associations, was just a member of the Tripartite Alliance, and many of its members are also wear hats as members of the ANC and members of the ruling governing party here in this particular province. And he basically did say that on record they feel that they have failed, but they are trying to revive the civic organization, revive the grassroots activism in terms of ensuring they keep a watchful eye on wasteful expenditure, which are some of the allegations and some of the things that have come out when you look at this municipality and other municipalities right across Free State, including, of course, the Mangaung Metro municipality, which is also in dire straits in terms of service delivery, basic services like water, like sanitation. And again, residents are saying that they do not mind servicing the service providers, which will be the municipality, in terms of paying for services. However, those services must be rendered in a continual, consistent and reliable basis, which has not been happening. And therefore, this is why they are up in arms and calling for the unconditional release of those behind bars. That's the latest here from Tumahole, Parys in the Free State. Back to you in the studio.
Tumaole, before we let you go, what are residents saying about their protest action? For now, pending the release of these 4 suspects, will they call it off?
Well, this is the key question here. I did speak to some of the organizers as well, Dudu, about calling off this particular protest, should, of course, their demands be met. But unfortunately, as far as the court officials are going, I spoke to one of the court officials, one of the lead prosecutors, saying that in terms of the charges, once it reaches the court process, once suspects are charged, detained, and they appear before court, then, of course, the wheels of justice have then to be given an opportunity to reach their own conclusions. And these people face charges including public violence and destruction of public property, including arson. So there are some very serious charges there. That is unlikely to happen. The call that's being made from outside the court might not influence what is happening behind the court walls inside the courtroom. So that is the latest there. We will wait to hear. The Justice Department certainly will be looking to see that justice is seen to be done, and this is the word from the justice officials. So after this, we will be going to a short ad break, and we will be back to you then, Dudu, after that. Let's go to the ad break.